Hey there, so in this video I'm going to talk about real evidence for the possibility of Atlantis, or at least a massive worldwide cataclysm that occurred in our distant past that may very well correspond with the myths about the fall of Atlantis. So I was first introduced to the concept, or this particular theory, by Barbara Hand Clow, who's a really awesome spiritual author who combines all kinds of different things, from myth to channeling to science, history, archaeology, etc. Kind of melds it all into one. And she has a book titled Catastrophobia, which is a really fascinating book, and one of the main things that it explores is the concept that humanity is currently still trapped in the emotional trauma from the fall of Atlantis, which occurred roughly 11 to 12,000 years ago. And so she explores how this affected human consciousness, and how we're still living out, fears and projecting those fears onto the world, and obsessed with end of the world scenarios, and stuck in various emotional patterns because of this major disaster. And she bases her book around another book which is titled Cataclysm, Compelling Evidence of a Cosmic Catastrophe in 9500 BC. I got that subtitle right. And that book is a work of scientific research that compiles all kinds of information, studies from the last several hundred years, and various findings, and puts together a really amazing body of evidence that there was indeed a massive cataclysm that occurred on Earth around 9500 BC. So that would be about 11,500 years ago. And that date is derived from the average of radiocarbon dating evidence from across the spectrum of different conclusions and findings. So basically, they put together evidence from all these different random, research and findings and studies and whatnot from people who were studying other things, and compiles it all together to paint this picture that there was indeed this massive cataclysm that occurred. And so they explore things like glacial erratics, which glacial erratics are massive boulders in the middle of like the tundra. I've seen them in Alaska. It's wide open tundra, and then there's this huge massive boulder sitting there. And so they look at these boulders and how they could have possibly gotten there. And the theory is that it was a result of glaciers retreating or advancing and depositing them there. And I can't go into it all in the course of a few minutes on this video, but that's just one of hundreds of different things that they explore. Things like you've heard about the woolly mammoths that are discovered with tropical plants in their stomachs that are still digested or that are undigested. They look at different species of animals that exist on the east coast of the United States and the west coast of Europe. Small little creatures that could not have possibly covered that distance, and yet they are thriving on both coasts. And they look at many different examples of this to show that there may very, very well have been a landmass connecting those oceans, but there was a shifting of the continents. So there's no way that I can properly put their research into a few minutes in a video, but if you're interested to read more about this, and it's a really, really fascinating and really dense read of just information after information. That book is titled Cataclysm. So the first person to introduce the concept of the fall of Atlantis was Plato. And interestingly enough, Plato lived in Greece, Greek philosopher, in roughly 500 BC. Plato said that this catastrophe of Atlantis occurred roughly 9,000 years ago. And so it's quite fascinating that the radiocarbon dating average that they came up with was 9,500 BC, precisely the time frame that Plato had looked at. So that's one concept, or one way to look at it. The other is to start reading some Graham Hancock books, because he explores all of these ancient structures scattered all around the world. He has one book in particular about ancient structures that are found underneath the ocean. Clear evidence that there had to have been a difference in sea levels one way or another, and very ancient looking structures. So you can put together a picture from various different angles that there very well may have been advanced civilizations in the time frame that current history believes that it was, Stone Age people scrabbling around, barely surviving in caves. But there may very well have been advanced civilizations, 10 to 12,000 years ago and prior to that, which were then destroyed in the course of this, major cataclysm. So just a few things to think about and some things to look at yourself. Feel free to look around online for more information. There's lots of awesome Graham Hancock information, videos on YouTube. I highly recommend Graham Hancock and David Wilcock. The video is titled Setting History Free. And that is a really fascinating, it's like an hour-and-a-half long video that I didn't want to end. It's just, they explore all these ancient mysteries and ancient archaeological evidence and whatnot. That's a really good one. So, all right, thanks for watching. Take care.